Minus One is 2023's version of RRR or Parasite, a movie that proves that casual audiences can get invested in foreign films. You don't need to be a Godzilla fan in order to love this one, and it does a much better job at sending up classic Hollywood blockbusters than, well, modern day Hollywood blockbusters. The director of this clearly understands what works about old-fashioned Spielberg movies like Close Encounters or Jaws, where the best creature features are about humans caught in the crossfire and the monsters represent their greatest fears. The acting from everyone is top-notch, Koichi being an absolute standout. The decision to have him be a failed kamikaze pilot is, for lack of a better term, unique and easy to root for, considering he obviously doesn't want to die and could have easily fulfilled his duty without doing Shut up. Without doing so, but he still feels guilty over the fact that he potentially could have saved countless lives. And without getting into specifics, when Godzilla's path of destruction arrives in Ginza, he's given something and someone to fight for. He does have the usual tropes of a shell-shocked warrior where there are people in his life he tries not getting attached to, but as opposed to bottling up his secrets until the third act, he's actually very open about the things that have happened to him and why he thinks that all of it was his own damn fault, right down to the fact that when he arrives back home in Japan and someone strikes him for supposedly being a coward, he doesn't even flinch just based on the fact that he genuinely feels he doesn't deserve to live. But there's also an underlying message about how true heroism comes from fighting battles that you actually want to fight. You have all these other side characters who are World War II soldiers, and they're scarred for life by the atrocities they've witnessed or committed because someone else told them to do so. But when their friends and family, people that they actually care for and would do anything to keep them alive, that's when they take real pride and joy in being a soldier, because that's when there's someone or something that's worth fighting for. Out of all the side characters in the movie, Noda, the mentor of the movie, really stood out the most, because even in the most dire circumstances, while he is as frightened as everybody else, he maintains this calm and composed attitude, always has a plan in motion that he's openly willing to admit does have holes and isn't guaranteed to work, but he has the utmost confidence in his strategic skills, uses them as a way to motivate the other soldiers, and if nothing else, always has this attitude where if people question him, he goes, "What, you got a better idea? I'd love to hear it." The captain and the kid didn't get as much in comparison, but they still had decent individual moments. The captain just has an infectious personality where he openly criticizes government corruption, but he also acknowledges that there's a time and place for officials to boss around ordinary citizens, like, defeating a giant lizard. The kid was a little annoying and too naive at one point. There was actually a time where I thought they were going to write him out halfway through, but then they bring him back in what's usually a pretty corny twist, but actually make it endearing and super suspenseful, because without getting into specifics, he has his own battle to fight that could go either way, just like the rest of the movie. And the only character who I felt kind of got screwed over in terms of depth and screen time was actually Noriko, and don't get me wrong, she gave a good performance. She has great chemistry with Koichi, where you never know throughout the entire movie whether or not they're actually a genuine couple, but they have a shared responsibility that makes their dynamic interesting. And at the very end of the movie, the resolution of their arc actually made me tear up the first time I saw it, but I can't say why. Halfway through the movie, she's out of the equation, and I would have liked that they had given her a little more before doing so. Now let's talk about Godzilla. Every time he's on screen, it is fucking awesome. The way they build him up, every single introduction is absolutely insane, with the little hints that he's coming. The grotesque, scaly skin, his ridiculously sharp teeth, those eyes that look like they're staring right at you with the intent to eat your ass right in that moment, just made me shake and shiver so much when I was in the theater, especially the sequence in Ginza where he is just demolishing the entire city, and the destruction looks utterly insane. The way they portray an atomic explosion where damage just goes one way and then back in the other, I had never seen that before in a movie, and it was so damn palpable. And his atomic breath, I can't even describe what it was like seeing that in an IMAX theater for the very first time. And as impressive as the visual effects are, everybody's pointed out how, for a ridiculously lower budget, it looks more photorealistic than most Hollywood movies. What really sells Godzilla's presence is the sound design that should have gotten nominated for the Oscars. I have no idea how it slipped behind it, because it really puts you in the setting alongside the characters. When things go mute during the explosions, or whenever anyone's in shock from just whatever the fuck it was they saw for the first time, it is utterly insane. Which is why I hate saying that in minus color, Godzilla is actually the weak spot of the film, and it's kind of underwhelming converting it from color to black and white. I know it sounds weird complaining about how Godzilla looks in black and white, but hear me out on this. There's a conversion of Logan called Logan Noir that, in my opinion, looks visually so much better than the original, except during the action sequences, because the blood and guts just don't look good in black and white. They blend into the background too much, and in my opinion, it had the exact same effect on Godzilla. Those eyes that I told you about, you can't even make them out half the time. The scaly skin that makes him look like such a scary creature is one muted shade of black or gray the entire time, and to sound like a broken record, the crashing of waves when he's swimming, the explosions, debris, characters flying all over the place, again, doesn't stand out. It blends into the background, again, as I said before, and because Godzilla is supposed to be such an intimidating presence as a villain, and desaturating it takes the effect out of it, it also makes it harder to root for the human characters, because now all of a sudden this threat has become less scary. And don't get me wrong, I know for a fact that the writing is still good, the acting is still good as I'm watching the black and white version, but it doesn't have the same feel. But with that being said, Godzilla Minus One is still a hell of a movie that, whether you've seen any Godzilla movie in the past or not, you should totally check out. The characters are endearing, the effects are amazing, Godzilla himself as a villain is still utterly crazy, and it's just a fun throwback to old Hollywood and old monster movies. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Minus One and Minus Color, and be sure to stay tuned for more reviews. Take care.